Salut les gars, ici Mike de Lunch Money Comics et aujourd'hui je suis à Quebec, Canada. Allons chercher des bandes dessinées. Pardon my terrible French, I tried. But yeah, I am in Quebec City, Canada on vacation with my family. They're over there somewhere. And even though I'm on vacation, I always have to look for comic books. And what better place than the most beautiful city in North America, in my opinion, Quebec City, Quebec, Canada. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's historic. They speak French. It's a beautiful place. And I'm hoping to find some nice comic books. I know of a whole bunch of antique stores and I know of at least one comic book store. So I'm going to check those places out and let's see how I do. Should be a good one. Cool. So that was a pretty cool little store, kind of like an antique store, lots of interesting things, and they had some French language Quebecois comic books. I definitely wanted some Quebec souvenirs in the comic book department, and I definitely got some. But luckily, I know of at least one comic book store that is in old Quebec City. Definitely gonna go find it and check it out. So I said Quebec City is historic. It's actually the oldest walled city in North America, north of Mexico. Basically, the old part of Quebec is a fortress set on the cliffs above the St. Lawrence River. It was the fortress of New France before England took it over, and its history as a fortress is pretty much everywhere. You can see relics of it all around. The entire top of the wall is covered in cannons everywhere we go. It's pretty awesome. You think it's awesome, Jack?
Oui.
Oui. Hey guys, so I found this comic book shop right in the old part of Quebec City. It's called Librairie Première Issue. I don't know what kind of comic shop it is, but we got to check it out, right? This is exactly what I was looking for. Cool. Looking for Bud?
There's one with some famous.
Which one?
I don't really remember if it's important.
Oh, wait. Okay. It might be. Moon Knight. Oh, yeah, that one's a good one. Yep. I think I have this, though. Awesome.
And that's the thing, we figured out that
For a Pence version.
if you don't want to carry it around,
Yeah, they'd earn it. I'm gonna grab one of these too.
yeah.
Cool. All right, guys, that was a pretty awesome comic shop. The guy who was in there named Simon told me that it's not only the oldest comic book shop in Quebec City, but probably the oldest in the entire province of Quebec. And it was very cool. You guys got to see it, and I got some pretty cool stuff. Can't wait to go home to Massachusetts and show you guys what we got. So that was something completely different. I've never done a video before where I was hunting for comic books outside of New England. So hopefully you guys didn't mind the scenery or the history lesson or my really poor French. I love Quebec. I've been there many times. You see, I have my souvenir Quebec Nordiques t-shirt. I love the NHL, and despite the fact I'm a die-hard Boston Bruins fan, I've always had a soft spot in my heart for the Quebec Nordiques. I always felt bad that they left the city and then promptly won the Stanley Cup in Colorado. But this t-shirt wasn't the only souvenir I got to bring back. I also got some very unique comic books to add to my collection. Before I show you what they are, if you want to support the channel and you like this sort of stuff, head on down, hit that like button, leave me a comment. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't already, and you can follow me on Instagram under Lunch Money Comics IG. So first up, I want to show you guys some French-Canadian comic books I was able to find in that antique store. So Quebec City has lots of antique stores, and I checked pretty much all of them, but I was having a really hard time finding comic books before I found this place here. It was called Magasin General. It's a pretty old store. It's from 1890. And just looking in the window, I had a pretty good feeling they might have comic books. And sure enough, they didn't disappoint. They had several boxes of both American and Quebecois printed comic books. Unfortunately, you guys can see in the footage, they were in very poor condition. Most of them were not bagged or boarded. They had huge tears on the cover. Some were missing front or back covers entirely, chips, you name it. But the thing that bummed me out the most was almost all of them had price tag stickers directly on the comic book, either the front or the back. So although a lot of them were cool, I decided I would just get like a few of them that were in the best condition. So I got 3. However, I was kind of kicking myself afterwards for 2 reasons. One, when I checked out up front, they were a lot cheaper than I thought. And I'm not just talking about like the Canadian to American conversion. They actually rang up like 25% less. So when I actually did the math in my head, these ended up costing me about $3 each, which is kind of what I'd pay for back issues here in the United States. But on top of that, I mentioned those stickers that were right on the book. Well, they weren't like the ones here where they have like glue on the back and you can tear the book. They were like plastic. I've never seen anything like it. They just come right off. Almost like, you guys remember those color forms from the 80s? That's what they were like. So they were like made for putting on paper. Had I known that, I probably would have bought a lot more. Still, I ended up with 3 that are pretty cool. All 3 of these were printed in Quebec, in St. Lambert, Quebec in the 70s. And they were all reprints or at least French versions of American comic books. So the first one I want to show you is this. This is the Fantastic Four. The French-Canadian numbering is 64 right here, but the American original printing of this is Fantastic Four number 175 from 1976. You see here, it was a battle between the High Evolutionary and Galactus. High Evolutionary in French is L'Evolutionniste, which I thought was pretty cool. And yeah, it's just a great comic book. What I think is really cool about these guys, even though the cover is in color, these comic books are all in black and white. I think that's pretty neat, actually. I'm kind of enjoying it because you can really appreciate the pencils. So, yep, that's the first one I got, Fantastic Four. The next one I got is this. This is, of course, a Shang-Chi Master of Kung Fu. Le Main de Shang-Chi, the hands of Shang-Chi, Maître du Kung Fu, the Master of Kung Fu. And this, again, Quebecois numbering 36. The original version here is Master of Kung Fu number 50 from 1977. Yeah, I just thought this one was the one in the best condition. There were lots of Shang-Chi books in those boxes you guys saw, but yeah, I like this one the best. Best condition, had a really cool cover. And once again, it is in black and white. And probably my favorite part about this is there's actually a mini story in here featuring Howard the Duck. I don't know if you guys can see that. So we get a Howard the Duck story as well in French. How cool is that? And then the last French-Canadian one I got is this, Le Pouvoir de Warlock. So the power of Warlock. This is, again, French-Canadian numbering. Well, I can't see. It was cut off. These are all cut kind of irregular. But Power of Warlock number 7 from 1973 is what this is reprinting. Same thing, black and white on the inside, but in this case, we have Warlock facing off against Doctor Doom. So very cool, guys. These are not things you find every day, certainly here or ever in the United States of America. So I was very happy to pick these up for about $3 American each. The last comic book I got at this place is not a French language or even Canadian version. It's a regular old American publication, but you'll see why I got it right now. This is Alpha Flight number 50. It is from 1987. And why did I get it? Because Alpha Flight is the premier Canadian superhero team. Like I said, I've been to Quebec many times in other parts of Canada as well. When I was a kid, I loved Canada. I still love Canada. And I always loved Alpha Flight. The idea of this great white north, all the vast wilderness, the fact that Wolverine was from there. I was really into Alpha Flight, this national team of Canada. And Alpha Flight books were cheap. Not many people collected them when I was a kid. I distinctly remember going through boxes of like 25-cent and 50-cent comic books, pulling out all the Alpha Flight I could. So yeah, there's not a key issue or anything. It's just the number 50 issue. You know, you see Loki right there on the cover, but I had to get an Alpha Flight book from Canada for obvious reasons. So I'm very happy to get this and add it to my collection. So these next two books I got in a comic book store, the only comic book store in Quebec City, as far as I could tell. And I'm going to butcher this. This is the Librairie Première Issue. And as I said in that footage, the guy who worked there, Simon, told me that it was the oldest comic book store in the entire province of Quebec. Now, I'm not sure if that's true. If you do live in Quebec, especially if you're in Montreal and you think you have a counter argument to that, I would love to hear it down in the comments. But his reasoning was this. Although it was founded in 1984, the guy who owned the store and founded it actually ran it out of his house, like out of his garage for decades before that. So that's why it has that claim to fame. But the one in the old part of Quebec was a small place. It was over 2 different floors. The bottom floor was all like trade paperbacks and graphic novels, and the upstairs had a pretty good selection of traditional comic books. So the first one I want to show you is actually a trade paperback I found on that first floor. I recently talked on my channel about how much I love H.P. Lovecraft. He's a horror writer from the early 20th century from New England, created an entire mythos based around these eldritch horrors. Lots of other writers have sort of emulated him. You know, he spawned all sorts of things, including, you know, a very well-known role-playing game. I love Lovecraft, and because of that, I recently talked about this storyline right here. This is Providence, which was written by the legendary Alan Moore, published between 2015 and 2017, art by Jason Burrows. And this was Alan Moore diving into this sort of Lovecraftian universe in homage to that, you know, those Lovecraft stories. And I talked about this story on my channel recently. And when I did, a ton of people went down to the comments and said, well, if you like that, have you read Neonomicon? No, I hadn't. Neonomicon was actually Alan Moore's first foray into the Lovecraftian universe. It was a story that was published in 2010. It was sort of like a precursor to this one. This was sort of like a sequel to Neonomicon. So I hadn't read it. I absolutely meant to get it at some point. And here I am in Quebec when I look down and I spot the trade paperback of the entire story. So I had to pick it up. So this is Neonomicon from 2010. Once again, written by Alan Moore, art by Jason Burrows. And this actually won the Bram Stoker Award for Best Graphic Novel that year. And yeah, people have told me things about it. They told me it's really creepy and really dark. So I'm excited to dive into this one. And it was listed at 25 bucks Canadian, so about $19 American. Absolutely happy to pick this up for that price. The other book that I got, you guys definitely saw in that footage. Actually, before I show this to you, you might have seen that I grabbed an X-Men 266 first appearance of Gambit. It was actually very well priced. I think it was $100 Canadian, would have been about 80 bucks or so American. It was a little bit more beat up condition-wise than I would have liked. Otherwise, I would have grabbed it. Instead, I got a different X-Men book. This is X-Men number 33. It's from 1967, written by Roy Thomas, art by Werner Roth, and this awesome cover by Gil Kane depicting, of course, the villain Juggernaut and the X-Men. I love the Juggernaut. Who doesn't love the Juggernaut? Classic X-Men villain. What a beautiful cover. I don't know if you guys can see it, but the background of this is like a really dark green. It just looks awesome. Absolutely love this cover. But the coolest part about this, you got X-Men, you got Juggernaut, and who's helping the X-Men fight Juggernaut? Doctor Strange. So how cool is that? X-Men, Doctor Strange team up against the Juggernaut. How could I say no, guys? The Canadian price on this was $80. So American, that's about $60. This book usually goes for like, 50 bucks American. So I paid a little bit more than normal for it. However, as I was looking at it, I noticed a little detail right there. You can see this isn't American. It's not even Canadian. This is a 10 pence UK version. I asked the guy if he had lots of UK versions. He said no, this is the only one he knew about. He didn't even notice it. So yeah, just for that reason alone, guys, I was happy to have it. I did not expect to be getting a UK publication in Quebec City, but I'm very happy to get it. So yeah, I paid a little bit extra, but it's in great condition. You don't find UK versions all the time, and I'm a huge X-Men fan, so absolutely had to have this book for that price. Very happy to add it to my X-Men collection. So there you go, guys. That was something a little different than what I usually do. I hope you enjoyed it. Head on down to the comments and let me know which of my pickups you like the best. Let me know if any of you out there have read Neonomicon. Let me know what you thought of it. No spoilers, please. Let me know if there's any other Alpha Flight fans out there. Definitely let me know what you think of these French-Canadian variants. I think these are really cool, unique additions to my collection. I only wish I got some more. And of course, let me know what you think of this awesome X-Men cover here, X-Men 33, cover by Gil Kane. And the fact it's a 10 pence version was just a pleasant surprise. Also, let me know if you've ever visited Quebec City or if you're from the province of Quebec. I would love to hear from you. Clearly, guys, I love Quebec City. And if you've never been there before, I think it's definitely a city you should add to your bucket list and visit at least once. That's it, guys. In the meantime, I hope you keep hunting for comic books in strange and unusual places. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.